Hello and welcome to Queendom TV. I've literally tried to film this video like I don't know how many times and something keeps disrupting me, so I think that's because some forces out there, if you're spiritual like me, do not want me to make this video. But anyway, today I'm going to be talking about the hashtag Free Britney movement. If you don't know what this is all about, search the hashtag. I've done some videos about it if you want to know more, and there's plenty great resources, videos and information out there on the internet. Feel free to check all of that out. But basically, we are all supporting Britney because she has been in a 13-year prison, also known as a conservatorship, that we are not happy about. And she's not happy about, and she's made very clear she's not happy about. So we are doing all that we can to support her, and that's why I'm making these videos as well. Because if I can share something that's going to help her, even if it's just to a few people, then that's helping. That's a few more people than knew about it before. And I think this is a bigger issue than Britney anyway, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to be talking about Bryan Spears and what's the other one? Alli Sims, which is her cousin. So Bryan Spears is her brother and Alli Sims is her cousin. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. If I look a bit distracted, it's because I've been stopped from this video about 5 times, like I've already said. So I'm still just getting back into the groove of it and hoping I'm not going to be distracted again. But let's get into it. So, Bryan Spears. Now, Bryan is actually Britney's older brother, which thank you to the lovely person in the comments on my other video about Britney who informed me that I should look into the brother who I did not know about. So thank you so much for that. I'm not sure if you'd be comfortable me shouting your name out in the video like this, but thank you so much for that. I really appreciated that actually, because I didn't know about this and it has actually added so many layers to this situation, I have to say. And it also landed me in also discovering about her cousin Alli Sims, who she actually lived with around the time in which all this conservatorship stuff started to happen. So there's so much to get into. If you don't want to watch the long interviews I've watched to get to this point, then this is the video for you. I'm going to give you the important information I feel like is important to note, tell you what I think about it, and tell me what you think about it. Write your ideas in the comments. I've been getting so much help from you guys in the comments, so many great ideas, so many great opinions, and so I really, really appreciate that. Feel free to let me know in the comments. Also subscribe if you're enjoying the content. It's been so much fun, like actually talking to people and having all the engagement and stuff, guys. And yeah, let's get into it. So Bryan Spears. Bryan is the oldest of, well, I think there's only 3 of them. Now I'm like, do I need to check if there's another one? Like, I should have done that before, you know, but I just like to, I just go with the flow of how I do things, okay? So Bryan is 3.5 years older than Britney, and Bryan is 14, I think, years older than, what's her name? Jamie Lynn. So the story is this. I watched this interview. It was a very long interview. It was an hour long. By the way, if you guys want me to, like, I have a playlist where I kind of save a lot of stuff that I have watched on YouTube, at least the YouTube portion of what I've looked at for Britney, and it's separate. So if you want me to make that public, if that would be helpful to anybody, let me know. I will do that. But basically, I was watching this video and it was on the As Not Seen on TV podcast, and the gentleman, by the way, who runs that podcast, he is so lovely, very well spoken, and I think the way he asked his questions, he asked lots of unbiased questions in a very unbiased way. And I'm saying all of this so that when we get into how Bryan responded, you guys can kind of get a feel for what was going on, if you know what I mean. So he was asking Bryan a bunch of questions, and first of all, it kind of started off a lot about the amount of money that Britney was making. So it came out that she was making out a lot of money, and this is where Bryan comes into the picture, because basically, as her career was taking off, he ended up having a role. I think it was in a management-y type role. More specifically, he said he was the one who kind of oversaw the finances, which I think is very interesting, because we all know that the finances are specifically the area that we're all probably the most upset about with regards to the conservatorship and Britney not being able to get to her money. And actually, even on the podcast itself, the guy was like, they basically realized that she was making like billions, like from quite early on. And so even the host himself was like, well, now that I know that, the fact that she's getting such a pathetic amount of money that she's allowed to spend of her own allowance sounds even more pathetic, because she's got so much money. So why? And so why are we so obsessed with telling her she can only spend a certain amount of money, kind of thing? And I totally saw where he was coming from. And Bryan very much kept talking about how he felt his role, and what he was really concerned about was making sure that she wasn't just making wealth that she was going to have today and it was going to be gone tomorrow, but building long wealth for the future, which I think of course is totally important. By the way, like, I think that was the sun just disappeared, if you're wondering why the lighting has changed, just throwing that out there in case you're wondering. But yeah, so he was mainly concerned about, like, is she going to be able to make money in the future, like, kind of thing. That's his angle. I'm going to say that's his angle. I'll just say from right off the bat, I'm not a fan of this Bryan dude. Not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. I'm going to get into why I'm not a fan of him, and why I think he is probably just as bad as his dad, and why I understand even more now why Britney says that she wants to sue her whole family. Because that was kind of the thing that made me want to look into him even more, because I'm thinking, well, if she said in the testimony, which I also listened to live myself, via Instagram or whatever, if she said in there that she wants to sue her whole family, she didn't say except so-and-so, except so-and-so. I think the only people we can probably assume are exempt from that are probably just her children, literally. Then, you know, Bryan obviously falls into that category as well. So he kind of tried to make out like he wanted to be very supportive of her career, and he just wanted to make sure her money wasn't going to be, you know, wasted. But the thing about it was, first of all, the way he answered a lot of the questions, it was very like, you know, like when he sounded like a politician. You know, like when politicians talk about stuff and everything just sounds perfect. Like they know how to answer a question without answering a question, but make you think that they've answered a question. He did a lot of that, you know. And so even with the conservatorship, when he was asked, like, how does she feel about the conservatorship? Does she want to be in it? Because the host of the podcast was like, well, surely you should know what's, if you're because Bryan had said that, like, he always talks to her and he keeps in contact with her regularly. So the guy was like, well, surely if you keep in contact with her regularly, then you should know how she feels about the conservatorship. It shouldn't be something that you need to be told by anybody else. So how does she feel, since you should know because you're her brother and you say you talk to her all the time? Which I thought was such a fair question. And he was kind of like, I mean, from the beginning, she never really wanted to be, even though it was necessary for her, she didn't really want to be in it. And so she's never really wanted to be in it. Like, you know, when people answer questions like that, and I really didn't like that, because it's like either say she did or say she didn't, you know. And that's why I'm going to talk about Alli Sims afterwards, because I feel like the way she has spoken about the situation, to me, shows somebody who genuinely cares and loves Britney and is like behind her, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm going to talk about her afterwards. So anyway, it goes on. He's talking about how he was basically just concerned about the finances. And then they talk about the situation that went down, you know, where now they've decided she needs to go on a conservatorship. And he said this was necessary at the time. He thinks that step was necessary at the time or something like that. And I was like, first of all, she got on the conservatorship for dementia, which already is ridiculous. And so if it was for something else, then I would understand, if you catch my drift. So anyway, he just did a lot of chatting about a whole lot of nothing. And the thing that I really didn't like about it, by the way, is when the guy on the podcast, and this is why I said I like the fact that he was unbiased, because now Bryan can't act like, oh, it's just the Free Britney people like trying to pick at him. Well, I'm about to be the Free Britney person picking at what he said. And when they were talking about the Free Britney movement, he kind of seemed not that happy about it. You could tell he didn't want to answer questions. Oh, I'm so glad I remember this. Also, he seemed to complain, saying that how in his family he finds it really difficult because there's so many women and they're strong women, and and all he said was, well, she's a strong woman, and so sometimes it's hard to say what I need to say or get my feelings across. And I was like, first of all, why are we talking about her being a strong woman as a negative thing? And second of all, you should be able to, like, why can't you have a conversation? Why is that an issue? And again, to me, it seems like, and this is my kind of theory anyway, I feel like people expected for Britney to just kind of go along with this thing and be okay with it and not say anything about it, while they all profited off of it in the many ways that they have. But her being a strong woman, well done for you, Britney, didn't want to do that. And so I think that's why things have gone the way that they have. And that's why they've had to put in so many things to control her, like, you know, putting her on the lithium, like she said, having her going to all these therapists that are actually not even helping her, and doing things that are going to actually damage her, like making her go out in public to therapy when she could easily have therapists coming to see her. These are all things she mentioned in her testimony, when she was saying about how these are things that haven't helped her, you know. But at the same time, they're happy for her to do shows. At the same time, they're happy for her to make all this money, and they're happy for her to make appearances, as long as that's all she's doing and nothing else. It doesn't really make any sense to me whatsoever. And he also kind of made it seem, I mean, he even took a jab at her driving as well, and said, I mean, she's a terrible driver. So what if she's a terrible driver? So many people are terrible drivers. Why is it that now you have the right to take her rights of living, or, well, I would say living, because right now she's surviving, her rights of living, because you think she's a terrible driver? Like, and again, it was the way that he kept throwing in these comments, which to me makes me think, you're clearly on that side, aren't you? You're clearly on that side. And funnily enough, listen to this. He is also, I think he said he was the executive producer on what's it called? On Zoe 101. So I'm like, As soon as I discovered that, and he even went as far as to say, like, towards the end of the interview, and by the way, this interview was in, I think, July 2020, I think it was, when this interview was, at least when it was uploaded to YouTube. So again, things hadn't even got as extreme as they are now, but listen to how, like, relevant it is to even the things that are taking place now, like with Jamie Lynn and all that sort of thing. But anyway, he was saying, like, that basically she, what was he saying? Yeah, that he said towards the end of the interview that now he's still kind of, he moved to Vegas after everything, after he stopped working for Britney. He moved to Vegas. Oh yeah, he tried to basically say he doesn't really know that much about what goes on with the conservatorship, which is probably a total lie. If you were completely in control of her finances before, you're now going to tell me that you barely know what's going on. But he did say he is close with his dad. So somehow he's close with everybody, and he knows everybody. That just doesn't add up. But anyway, he stated that Zoe 101 was probably one of the best projects he'd ever worked on. And so, and even then, in this same interview from July 2020, he was saying that he thinks that that it's still going to go, that Zoe 101, the reboot, is still going to go forward. So again, he was probably another one pushing this through. Now, another interesting thing that he mentioned, how did Zoe 101 come to being? Well, Britney was getting an award, I think, somewhere. I think it was something, either Britney was getting an award or something, and there was somebody from Nickelodeon basically had seen a video of Britney and Jamie Lynn, and as a result of this video they'd seen of her, that's how they decided they wanted to make a show about her. And obviously the show ended up coming to a halt because Jamie Lynn ended up falling pregnant at 15, which again, even when he mentioned that, he didn't really say that with his chest like how he was saying other things. He kind of didn't want to acknowledge the fact that she was 15, and you could tell he was getting uncomfortable. I'm not a body language expert, but we all know when somebody looks uncomfortable talking about something and when they look comfortable talking about something. So that was really interesting as well. So again, to me, it kind of seems like, you know, in terms of her siblings, there's a big sense of, I personally feel, of hate towards her and jealousy and extortion. And I think they're quite happy extorting from her. Excuse me. I think they're quite happy extorting from her to the extent where actually I think they're either, at the time they were like living near each other or something like that, because I specifically remember him saying, oh yeah, like he hangs around with Maddie, which is Jamie Lynn's daughter, and how she loves softball. So they're obviously very involved with each other, and he obviously said he's close with his dad, or he's very close with his dad. So again, you can just see how he clearly is not on Team Britney. He's very much he is another person who has a lot to gain from things like, you know, the conservatorship and stuff like that. And again, even in him moving to Vegas, to me, it's kind of like he probably moved there at the time because that's where Britney was doing her residency, and they probably thought they were just going to be milking that residency for I don't know how long until she decided she wasn't doing it. And obviously that's probably when he's decided to step down. Now that's just what I think. That's all allegedly, you know, alleged whatever. But I found that to be extremely interesting again. And like I said, he's got negative opinions about women. He's claiming to be close with everybody in the family. He's close with Jamie Lynn and was the executive producer on the show. And this is Bryan. So we'll put a pause on Bryan for now. If I feel like there's anything else to mention about him, I'm going to come back to it, because now I want to talk about Alli, so you can see why I'm not a fan of Bryan, right? So Alli lived with Brittany. I think it was like 2008. I can't even remember, but they basically lived together for a year, and she kind of was there when all this stuff started to go down, and there was the situation where, you know, Brittany locked herself in the house with her children, which I really want to get into. But the really interesting thing about Alli is she had so much to say about Brittany as a person. She talked about how loving she was. She said how in all these stages where the media, she talked about like when they used to go out shopping and go out for dinner, and the media would be saying all these things, and for her and Brittany, they would just literally be trying to do things that like friends would do because they were cousins. And Alli ended up living with her because they were like already pretty local anyway. And then Alli ended up being her actual personal assistant because it kind of just made sense for them. At the time, she was happy to do it. And that even when she was no longer Brittany's personal assistant, they still lived together, and Brittany was still just as happy to live with her. So you can tell there's no sense, even in the way she was talking, there was like no sense, in my opinion, of like jealousy or like hatred or anything. I mean, Alli herself, she's a singer. And she said, you know, it was a good step for me to step away. In fact, Brittany pushed me to go and do my own career and not to just dedicate my whole life and time to her. So again, to me, it seems like Brittany is very much somebody who's happy herself. And she said Brittany is somebody who always would want to support people around her and help them reach their own goals as well. And so she had all these really interesting things to say, you know, and the reason why I even watched the video is because the title of it was like, Brittany felt like she was losing control over her life. And so in all this time when all this stuff was going on, as in Brittany ended up locking herself in with the children, because basically at this point she had I think she was going through some type of custody battle, which also Alli said she actually sat in. She was one of the witnesses for that, and she had to be in a courtroom for 8 hours basically testifying. And she even specifically stated that she was okay with doing, because she only had positive things to say anyway, because she thinks that Brittany's a great mum and she's a very hands-on mum, and she felt like the reason why she reacted in the way that she did in terms of like shutting the door and not letting anybody in was not because she was losing her mind, but because she loved her children. And again, the reason why I'm bringing this specific thing up as well, especially to me as a Christian person, is like, I believe the way God designed us was that our parents ultimately are the ones who are supposed to look after us and have the ultimate decision as to how responsibility, I guess, for us. And so one thing that I really don't like about how the world has progressed, and I believe it's very ungodly, is how much the system can get in and stop people from being able to see their parents. Because the way I see it is like this, right? There are parents who do things to children that they should not do, you know, and to be honest, it's probably even more common than we think. But at the end of the day, it's that person's child, that's their decision they made. And people, regardless, are almost always, and they always say this is why even in this country, the social system prefers to keep people with their parents as much as possible, because children always do better with their parents, even if their parents, there's not something wrong with them, because I don't want to make it sound like there's something wrong with their parents, but even if, you know, they're not the best parent in certain ways. And I believe that was God's design. I believe God gives children to people who can look after them and know how to look after them. And I think it's natural, and that's where I'm kind of going with this. It's natural as a parent to want and feel entitled to look after your own child. So for me, even the fact that people looked at this as a negative, and again, going from what Alli said, because everything that Alli was saying was like every single situation, the interviewer was really trying to pick apart and almost like, to me, it kind of seemed like find a way for them to be like, well, this is why she's on a conservatorship. But every single situation that came up, like, so and this was going on the news. What was going on with you? She's like, yeah, I spoke to Brittany that day. She was totally fine. We were totally normal. Actually, that day we went down to the pool. We were painting our nails. Like, Brittany seemed to be totally fine. And so she was saying that the media, there was some truth to what they're saying, is in that maybe she needed to take a step back, and she felt like, if anything, from everything that was going on, maybe Brittany needed to take a step back from her career. But by no means did she need to be going into any type of conservatorship. By no means was she a bad mum whatsoever. by no means, she didn't say she didn't have dementia, but from what she's saying, she doesn't sound like she had dementia. You know, she seemed to have total understanding and control over her life. And unfortunately, Alli had happened to be away for a couple of days when the whole locking the children in situation happened with Brittany. But she said even when she got back to speak to her, she seemed totally fine and normal. So the way that everybody was talking about her as if she'd like lost her mind, I think personally the family, and again, Jamie Spears has been known, as in the dad again, James rather, has been known to give information to TMZ. Now, if you know about like, you know, news outlets, I don't know if you want to call that news outlets, they're just basically a tabloid really. If you know about tabloids and news outlets and stuff like that, most people would agree that TMZ is one of the least reliable sources because they just print all sorts of inflated things. That's why a lot more people are trusting in like YouTubers and trusting in other platforms to give the truthful information. And so Jamie has actually been, or James has actually been the one who gives the information about Brittany to TMZ, which this has come out as well now. So if you look at that, it just goes to show you that I wonder how early these things started to happen, because then when Brittany was looking like she was losing her mind, and they've created this whole narrative in the news, and everybody has had so many people now have had to apologize about what they've said about her because they've realized, oh my goodness, we didn't know she was going on about this behind closed doors. Or, you know, the other group of people who did know what was going on but didn't say anything, which Lynn Spears, I'm coming for you in my next video. But you can understand how that was happening. And so even Alli was saying that when this whole stuff started to go down, that her and Brittany, that basically at some point James Spears sent her some kind of a legal agreement that she was now totally cut off from Brittany as a result of everything that was going on, which she personally didn't see why that was happening, because she wasn't getting Brittany to do anything bad, all that they were doing together. And she also gave the example of how, you know, the tabloids are following her driving around, saying she's losing her mind driving around. But she was explaining that one of the things her and Brittany liked to do was sometimes just go for a drive, you know, just go around, enjoy a drive. It's nice and it's peaceful. And I think that's normal. I mean, I love to go for a drive. I like being in the car a lot personally. I like being in the car. It's nice. You get to look around at what's going on, see people living their lives. And so the tabloids and everything are taking that information and making it like Brittany's losing her mind, she's just driving around and around in circles. And her cousin, innocently, by the way, they could have been doing anything. They could have been doing drugs. They could have been doing all manner of things. And all they're doing is two young women who decided that just because they wanted to have a bit of peace, they wanted to go for a drive, and they can't even do that. So, you know, again, you can just see that there's been this battle between what the media, and again, it just goes to show you how powerful the media is. I think we really, and this is why it's important to like really look for the truth of things and not just listen to what you hear, because at the end of the day, how the news portrays things and how people portray things, it really affects what people think. And there have been so many situations where you see somebody in a certain light, and then at the next moment you discover something and you realize, oh my goodness, we were wrong all this time. You know, like case in point, the likes of people like Jimmy Savile, you know, he was somebody that lots of people respected. And I'm not saying that the media added to it and hid anything, but there are probably people that hid things, because where there are victims, where there is dodgy behavior, there are people that are witnessing that stuff going on. And that's why I've said so many people who've been around Brittany have failed her just by not speaking up by whatever they saw. And even Alli said herself, she said at the time, when she got cut off, which she didn't understand why, her and Brittany kind of had said goodbye to each other in the way where like, oh, this will probably blow over in like a month kind of thing. And then after that, and this is quite an old interview, this is back from 2009, this interview. So again, this is long before all the stuff that's happened. So no one can even come and say, oh, she's just piping up now because of whatever. No, this interview was from a long time ago now. And so again, you can see that like, even then, when this was all going down, when the birthing of this conservatorship was happening, there was already so much about her that showed that she didn't need to be under something like that, you know. And why was her brother so obsessed, and so many people so obsessed with helping her with her finances? And even the guy on As Not Seen on TV podcast, he said to Bryan, he said, yeah, but why does it have to be under a conservatorship? Like so many famous people, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 assistants. Why is it that Brittany has to be under that? Because they were like, because Bryan basically tried to say, well, like, oh, well, if Brittany comes off the conservatorship, there's a worry about if she'll be able to like spend her money. And again, to be honest with you, she's worked so hard. As far as I'm concerned, it's her money. Why are you so obsessed? Why are people so obsessed? Again, another thing that I don't like, and another thing that I don't like about the world and I love about Christianity. As a Christian person, Christianity is about taking accountability for your own life and yourself and your own decisions. If I become a millionaire or a billionaire and I spend that money, it's on me, and it's going to be better for me for that to be on me. I'm going to learn more lessons that being on me than I am people like controlling me. Because this is the thing now that I have with Britney, is now she's in a catch-22 situation because she's not been able to be in control of her finances for 13 years. So people are just making the same arguments they made from before, whilst not actually giving her an opportunity to prove that she can do something different, if that makes sense. So it's like, how are you going to know, because you didn't ever give her the proper chance? Do you know what I mean? It's not like they're saying, oh, she went on tour, she made 50 million from this tour and she blew it overnight. If she had done that, and again, still, I think it's her responsibility, it's her money, she's the one doing the legwork. And I get it. There's so many people that have to help with these kinds of things, and all those people need to be paid. And from what Alli's saying, and she worked as her personal assistant, Alli seems like she's Britney's a very, very supportive, individual. And I don't think Britney would have been out here paying them all like $2 an hour or something for their work. I think she was so grateful that she had people stepping in for her. But at the same time, it's her money to spend. And if you're making that amount of money, then why are they even concerned about that? I'm sure that she could blow half of the money and she could still more than afford to pay for all of the staff that she has, if that makes sense. So again, when you look at the facts and you just throw things around, even if everything that I'm saying is not the exact perfect truth to the T of whatever, then essence of what we're getting from this is just goes to show you that there is definitely exploitation going on here, and it's definitely within the family. And again, it is such a shame in this day and age, and not even this day and age, but just in life, that your own family, and this is why I think sometimes, we say so many comments about family, like family is always there for you, family looks after you, like love is this and love is that. This is why I don't go by the worldly standards of stuff, because when you go by the worldly standards of love and you go by the worldly standards of family, this is what happens. This is what happens. People exploit, even in the Bible talks so much about, how to treat children, how seriously God takes it, how we treat our children, and this is what I think when I hear about all this Britney stuff. I think, the way God is going to deal with you, James Spears, the way God has to deal with you for the way you've treated the child that he blessed you with, and then you even want to be acting like you know about God. God takes these things very seriously, And again, so that's why when people say all this stuff in the world and we say, nah, we make all these noise. Like, you can say anything. Right now I can say I'm blue. I'm not blue, am I? But I've said I'm blue. I can say I love the war. That doesn't mean I love the war. I can say anything. Do you know what I mean? So saying family is family or whatever, that doesn't mean anything. And I really believe, for me anyways, in Christianity, I feel like it gives meaning to the things that we do. It gives meaning to our words and meaning to our love and actions to those things, because you don't love somebody by just saying it. Like, even with James, he said in the interview, and I mean, even Bryan all said, of course I love my sister, I check up on her all the time. Show your love in action. Your love is shown by action. This is why I believe even in the Bible it talks about for God so loved the world that he gave. Let's just stop at that point, that he gave. It doesn't say that God so loved the world that he sat up in heaven and just laughing at everybody's issues and saying, oh, but I love you, and doing nothing and keeping silent when things are going on. No, in fact, he goes as far as to talk about the things that he's going to do to the people that do you wrong. That's why I'm already here. Like, God was the one, I even personally believe that God was the one allowing us to even be hearing all this stuff in the courtroom, making sure that it was heard, giving Britney that voice and that opportunity. And I don't think it's by chance that now even she's going more into church and stuff like that as well, because she mentioned now that she's Catholic the other day. And I'm just saying this to say that, I think sometimes in the world we think we know, but we don't know. And it's such a shame, because look at where Britney is now. Look at all the facts. Look at how Alli, who was somebody who was the closest that you can be to someone, personal assistant, only had positive things to say about her, how lovely she was. And I mean, Alli could do anything. Alli could sell a story for however much as a personal assistant. Do you know how much money she can make for that? But she didn't choose to do that. And again, it shows how much she, again, by her actions, is probably a genuine advocate, advocate and friend, and somebody that loves Britney and is a family type person to Britney, than Bryan, who is answering questions as if he's in a court of law, or like he's a politician. And I mean, even on the As Not Seen on TV podcast, when the producers, as the host was calling them, these two ladies who I think he works with or whatever, they came in to also say hello to Bryan, and you could tell he was dreading it. You know, like when somebody doesn't want to answer something, like, because they know that, like, oh, and he even said, like, oh gosh, now the real, he's like, now the real questions are going to come. Like, why are you concerned about that? If you're so sure about what you're doing, if you're so sure what you're doing nothing wrong, then why are you so concerned about the fact that people are going to ask you questions? Like, if I'm being truthful, ask me away, because I will tell you, and I have nothing to hide. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, anyway, before going on and on, I just thought that it was very, very interesting to see the complete difference. First of all, to see Bryan and how much him and his sister, as in Jamie Lynn, and the dad have in common, how bad they are. They're really bad actors as well. They're extremely bad actors. James, what's his name again? Bryan and Jamie Lynn are horrible actors, I have to say. They could have done a much better job if they wanted to pretend that they were concerned about Brittany. But then listening to Alli as well, I think just goes to show you that, you know, there's more than what meets the eye. And obviously when Brittany had the opportunity to say what she needed to say, she said it. And again, even now I've discovered, you know, Judge Penny has denied the request to move the hearing forward, so now we're waiting for a hearing in September, and I think she's already currently denied the request for James to be removed. So I think so many people are under James's thumb. If you think back all the way back in 2009 when this interview came out by Alli, and I think at that point it had already been like a year or something, and I think the conservatorship itself started in, I don't know, calculate it for anybody, 13 years ago. So yeah, so around 2008. Already James was very quickly cutting a lot of people off from knowing what was going on, and starting to put in, you know, things to be able to be in total control. And I think if they really wanted to do this for the best of her, they would have put more of a plan and actions into, you know, we're gonna, if they were that concerned about her finances, why not go, okay, we're gonna try and attempt to trust you with you know, $1,000 a day, and this, I don't know. To me, it just seems like they had a lot to gain. She had a lot to lose. She was a good person in the sense of, like, I don't believe in good people, as I've said before, apart from Jesus. But I believe that she has a good heart. And I think a lot of the time, unfortunately, people with good hearts are always the ones who get taken advantage of. And I think because she had such a good heart, that's why God has blessed her with such an incredible career and gift, because he knew she would use it really well. And unfortunately, the enemies, her enemies, she was living amongst her enemies. And I think now we're just really hoping that we can help. I hope this video has been really helpful. Please let me know your thoughts and your comments, what you think of Bryan, what you think of Alli. Like I said, next time I'm probably going to talk about Lynn. I feel like I need to talk about her, especially as a mother. It's a really big issue for me that things have gotten this way with her. But I don't want to make this video go on any longer than it already has. But thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to support the Free Britney movement. There are so many pages and like channels out there. Just keep sharing the news and making a scene about it, because I think the more that people know, the harder it is to hide things. And I really believe, you know, in this season of time, as we've been going through lots of crazy things, I think, you know, God wants to expose what's going on in a lot of areas. And so I think it's not by accident that all of this stuff is coming out right now. But yeah, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it. And please leave a comment. The comments have been amazing. And we've been having so many interesting discussions down there. So I'll see you in my next video. And